Speaking the Truth with Caroline Stevens. Today I'm in central England with Len Lawrence. You'll probably remember I interviewed Len Lawrence in a local hostelry even a few weeks ago. Len used to fly the royal family around Europe. He's also flown Margaret Thatcher to the signing of, was it the Maastricht Treaty?
Yes.
So, over to you, Len. What would you like to talk about today?
I'd like to talk about the Court of Protection. The Court of Protection is a superior court with its headquarters in London. There's satellite Court of Protection courts all over England and Wales. And what happens, people who are deemed to lack mental capacity and are classed as extremely vulnerable are placed under the Court of Protection.
And this happened to you, didn't it, Len?
This happened to me, and this was the very first Court of Protection certificate issued. However...
You were the first person?
No, in my case this was the first Court of Protection certificate to be issued against me.
Oh, right, okay.
Right. Now, all too often the Court of Protection is abused, and solicitors and barristers have people certified under the Mental Health Act or Mental Capacity Act as deeming to lack mental capacity to stop them in any litigation. And that's what happened to me. My former wife's barrister was able to have me certified as lacking mental capacity without a medical examination by a consultant psychiatrist and Signet Healthcare, Godden Green.
And that was in connection with your divorce, was it?
Yeah, my wife was divorcing me. I had a brain injury. 75% of people with brain injury are divorced. So I'm one of that percentage. Anyway, I was certified without a medical by Dr. Jeremy Royds, a private consultant psychiatrist from Signet Healthcare, Godden Green, and placed under the official solicitor of the High Court. What is interesting, a consultant psychiatrist from Buckinghamshire Mental Health Trust said my cognition was grossly intact. I had full capacity. However, because of this one piece of paper, all my rights were taken away and I was placed under the official solicitor of the High Court, or official solicitor of the Senior Court.
It's amazing how one piece of paper can blight the rest of your life, isn't it?
Now, it is.
And
now,
who signs that? Can I have a look at this, please? So, okay, so who has signed this? It doesn't actually say what their role is. What,
no.
Who actually signs this?
That was signed by Jeremy Royds, a consultant psychiatrist.
Right, so he's not an attorney general or...
No, he's a doctor, psychiatrist.
Okay, right, thank you. And are you saying he'd never actually seen you?
He'd seen me, but when that was issued I wasn't his patient, and he issued it without a medical.
Right, okay.
Now, a man came to my house, well, several people have come from my house, the house I rent, and they all come from an ex-military background and the security services. And they've looked at this document very thoroughly. And what they've noticed, there's no serial number, there's no barcode, so there's no audit trail. No one would know that this has been issued. And the most recent person to come to my house, again ex-military, Royal Navy, he had been served in the police service, military police service. He took a very close look and he said, "Look, Mr. Lawrence," he said, "oh, look, Len, this is ordinary photocopying paper. There's no Court of Protection embossment in the paper. Anyone could have printed this off. But this piece of paper took away all my rights." When people tried to rescue me, and we had some interesting people come forward. One was a man called Mr. Alistair Wilson. Mr. Alistair Wilson was the clinical director of trauma Accident and Emergency Medicine at the Royal London Hospital. He was the founder of the London Air Ambulance. He was deemed to be unsuitable to be my guardian, even though he was my next of kin. Another doctor stepped forward, Dr. McGee. Dr. McGee was a consultant anaesthetist. He had served with the Royal Navy, he had served with the Army, and he was a member of the Military Intelligence Service. Having served in Northern Ireland and other countries, he was also deemed an unsuitable person.
So Len, what happened after this?
What happened?
Maybe I should be facing you a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Yes.
What happened, Caroline, is I was placed under the official solicitor, and I was then medicated by psychiatrists until I lost mental capacity. So for almost 18 months I was incapable of legal discussion and understanding because of psychiatric drugs.
So could you use your bank account?
Surprisingly, they didn't close my bank account.
But they could have done, couldn't they?
They could have done, but they did sell the house, my house.
So for the benefit of the people at home,
Mm.
can you sort of explain how this impacts on your entire life when one of these certificates is issued for you? Normally then, we're saying you wouldn't have been able to use your bank account.
Let me tell you how it impacts.
Yeah.
During the period 2006 to 2009, over 600 parents, that's mother and husband, were certified under the Mental Health Act, and their children then faced adoption. They were placed under the official solicitor. Recently, a journalist has made a request to the official solicitor's office for the number of parents that have been certified under the Mental Capacity Act, Mental Health Act, from 2009 to 2019, where their children then faced adoption. The official solicitor's office is refusing to give the number. I'd made a Freedom of Information request to the Auditor General, and the Auditor General responded very quickly to me, and it came back over £700 million in cash was being held by the Court of Protection. This didn't include properties that people owned, and it didn't include stocks and shares.
So when you say property, they're holding this money. They actually, when they issue one of these certificates
Yes.
for people, they actually start helping themselves to their property.
A charge can be placed on your house, and it all comes under the Court of Protection. Because the Court of Protection is a superior court and it's very secretive. Christopher Brooker, the journalist, I think he wrote in the Telegraph,
yes,
described the Court of Protection as the most secretive court in the world, or in the land. Now, I was certified, so all my rights were taken away. But what I didn't know at the time, Caroline, was my wife's barrister, Dominic Brazil from 1 King's Bench Walk, had an association with a solicitor in the office of the official solicitor. And her name is Helen Mary Clift. Helen Mary Clift had worked as a private solicitor in family law in Reading prior to joining the official solicitor's office.
Reading, that would come into
Reading,
Thames
Berkshire,
Valley, wouldn't
yeah.
it?
Where she had briefed my wife's barrister, Dominic Brazil, in all her family cases. So when Helen Cliff left and went to work in the official solicitor's office, surprise, surprise, barrister Dominic Brazil, 1 King's Bench Walk, had me certified without a medical, then placed under Helen Cliff, who made all the clinical and financial decisions on me without telling the Court of Protection. So they never knew about me, even though there was 5 Court of Protection certificates issued to protect me. The Court of Protection were not told by solicitors. Again, look very carefully, no serial number, no barcode, no embossment of corporate protection paper. You can print this off the computer today, but it took away all my rights. The document, that finally released me was this one, issued by Professor Turnbull. Surprise!
Oh, the Turnbull report?
No, Professor Turnbull. Professor Gordon Turnbull is a consultant psychiatrist, a professor. He served in the RAF as a wing commander, and it is said he's the world authority on PTSD, a diagnosis which I have. And again, with Turnbull's certificate, no serial number, no barcode, no audit trail. But we can audit where these certificates have been. They have been with the official solicitor of the High Court, but never reached the Court of Protection.
Right, okay. So, when to go back to what they can do to you, they can stop, they can freeze your bank account?
They can do everything. They can freeze your bank account, they can put a charge on your house, and they can sell your house, and the money goes into the court funds.
And then how is that supposed to be allocated for your care, or?
Yes, it should be for your care.
Yes.
But you find solicitors, barristers who are involved with Court of Protection work putting in astronomical fees. There was a hearing in Slough County Court, and the barrister Dominic Brazil, who in fact held one of the certificates, had it was a Court of Protection hearing on the 4th of August 2005, and I requested that Mr Wilson, Mr Murray and Dr McGee acted for me. The hearing lasted 5 minutes, and at the end of it the District Judge John Faulkgang refused the request and put a £10,000 cost order on me. But it's now known that District Judge Faulkgang never held a Court of Protection certificate. He had no jurisdiction over me. No one did. Only a Court of Protection judge. Now,
so basically he's claimed £10,000 out of your estate.
a lot more than that. There was a hearing with His Honour Judge Simon Oliver in 2013. Mr Brazil charged £8,000 for a 1-hour hearing, but that money wasn't paid. I refused to pay it.
So you couldn't have been that incapacitated then? If you
No, this is many years later.
Right, okay.
I was during the period 2004 to 2006. They medicated me with sodium valproate, zopiclone, olanzapine, and that's the drugs I know until I lost capacity, alleging that I was mentally ill.
Because of the drugs they gave you?
Yes. The reality was, and this was sent me by someone in the IPCC. It's an internal email from Thames Valley Police to Devon and Cornwall Police, and I'll read it to you. Force Intelligence Officer, Devon and Cornwall Police, Force Headquarters. Disclosure of the information contained herein is strictly prohibited. Email Thames Valley Police, Devon and Cornwall Police, timed 2105 49 11 6 2013.
Is Anthony Stansfeld aware of this? He's the Police Crime Commissioner for Thames Valley. Is he aware of your case?
I don't know, but
Right,
I'm
okay.
sure he will be now. This is all connected with a case where a large number of airline pilots received brain damage from the ingress of organophosphate into aircraft cabins. Mr Lawrence is such a victim and has received brain damage.
Well, it's interesting because I interviewed Anthony Stansfeld last year, and I did suggest to him that really all these police crime commissioners need to get together and discuss cases such as yours and the banking scandals, and they need to be educating each other, don't they? It's to get best practice.
Well, this is why we're doing these programmes. What you're doing, you did it with Alan Dransfield and others. We are educated. We've been thrown down the long path into the long grass to frustrate us, but
This is the time's right now, because there's a growing discontent in the country because of the referendum. Whichever side you're on, everybody is disgruntled. You know, the Brexiteers know that we're not coming out of the EU, and the Remainers think that they've been shortchanged as well. And the truth of the matter is, as I see it, that we are sort of staying in and getting closer and becoming more of a federal state. So all this corruption on top of the dissatisfaction with our MPs, it's got to come to a head, hasn't it? So we've got a few more minutes just to finish our part one on the Court of Protection. What do you think You mentioned it earlier about the mums with their children, the fathers with their children being removed from them. How can you sort of give them advice or about what the situation they're going through perhaps now?
The situation is dire because once you're certified under the Mental Capacity Act and you're put under the Court of Protection, no one can go near you. You're a protected party. You interviewed a Court of Protection patient, Caroline, you're likely to find yourself in prison. So no one can go near him. Only authorised Court of Protection judges can deal with these people.
So that's the reason why. So basically I do a show on a Monday night called Wake Up UK, and there's some of the mums on there. They want to come on the show, but they keep getting these gagging orders.
Yeah, they get these, and a man very good at this is His Honour Judge Simon Oliver at Reading County Court. Now, His Honour Judge Oliver conducted an appeal hearing with myself, but we now know, a Court of Protection hearing, but we now know, and this came straight from the Court of Protection, His Honour Judge Simon Oliver won the Court of Protection judge in 2012 when he dealt with my case.
Can I have a look at that, please?
Yeah, you can.
So, dear Mr. Lawrence, Simon Oliver does not hold a Court of Protection nomination.
Yes.
Okay, so you are now, so let's fast forward to today. You are no longer under any jurisdiction of anybody else.
No.
You are your own person.
I am.
And you've managed to get your house back?
No. My house was worth approximately 720,000. All I recovered from that was
80,000. That was after the divorce as well?
That was after the divorce.
Right, okay.
But with the help of many people, we've opened this up and we found what's going on. When you get a case, Simon Oliver from Reading County Court was told to send my case to the Court of Appeal by Mrs. Justice Porfley. There's his private email, we have it. But what he did, he printed the email off, then he wrote underneath to backdate an order and give instructions to Master Bancroft when we're in the Court of Appeal that my appeal was to fail. He's been caught.
Right, so let's have a look at this. What would you give, what advice would you give to people at home now, what they should be doing if they're in a situation?
Well, the first problem people have, like I had, you're traumatised. You can't think straight. Everything around you is closing in. Your children have been taken, possibly. You're being divorced by your spouse. You're under the Court of Protection. Your house is being sold. You're traumatised. What can you do? You go to the doctor. They're going to medicate you. And
yeah, have you seen it on the news? Lots of broadcasts now about people going and seeking mental health advice, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure that's a good idea always.
Sorry Caroline, before we end, the first thing Professor Gordon Turnbull did, and he's the author of this book, A World Authority on PTSD, was to stop all psychiatric medication that I'd been given.
Wow. Okay, well, we're going to follow this up with another show. So, anything else to say before we wrap it up?
Well, we've got a lot to say.
We have, and we're going to have
yes.
lots of shows. So thank you, Len Lawrence, for coming into the studios. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody at home for listening. And this has been Seeking the Truth with Caroline Stevens. And look forward to seeing you in the next show of my interviews with Len Lawrence. Thank you. Over and out.